Well, I think I should start from the moment why we started doing this mini renovation in the living room, because if it weren't for this incident, nothing would have been done. Since I already mentioned a little in the previous video, there was an accident. The driver of the car exceeded the speed limit and missed his turn, began to twist the steering wheel to the left and crashed into our house. Thank God everyone survived, and our house also withstood such a blow. Also the walls shook quite well. It was like an earthquake and scared us quite a lot. The impact caused the bed to bounce off the wall. Literally 5 minutes before this incident, my brother was laying on this bed. We immediately thought that a rocket had fallen somewhere nearby, since this is the situation in our country now. But then, when I looked carefully through the window, I saw the emergency lights flashing behind our house, and then I immediately realized what had happened. The next day, in the light of day, we began to get better acquainted with what happened that night, and slowly clean up this mess. I don't know how, but the wall of the house simply miraculously survived, although such cracks appeared in the wall. The main blow hit the middle of the wall and the car ricocheted to the side. Then the car was picked up by a tow truck. This process was not so fast, and it didn't work out the first time. But in the end, the car was loaded onto a tow truck and taken away, and then we hurried to install a temporary fence and managed to do it before evening. Now it looks messy, but it's only temporary. Then, after a short pause, I don't even remember how much time passed before we gathered our thoughts and strings, we began to do this. As it turned out, not a quick process, as it may look in a video, but right away we thought of making only one wall. But then, when we realized that it was a bad idea. First step of our work was we putty on the damaged wall and put up wallpaper, but it wasn't very good at all. And then we all together decided to put up wallpaper in the entire living room. This is reminders from our childhood. The symbols were drawn by my sister back in my distant childhood. We immediately glued wallpaper over the old ones, but then we realized that it was a bad idea. Then we realized that old wallpaper can be easily removed when you spray it well with water. We all worked hard together, but when we glued the wallpaper almost completely to the walls in the living room, We realized that now the ceiling looked bad against the background of the beautiful new walls. It got to the point where we ran out of wallpaper and there was no such wallpaper in the nearest store either. We had to wait some time until such wallpaper was brought to the store, and in order not to waste time, we decided to tidy up the windows in one go, refreshing them with fresh paint, and then the pipes and radiators. Also, at the same time, we tidied up the hallway, wiped off the dust, and also removed the curtain to wash and hang it back. Without thinking twice, we quickly came to an agreement to make the suspended ceiling ourselves. And also, in order not to waste time while we are waiting for the wallpaper, we take measurements and order special fabric for the stretch ceiling via the internet. Then we do the preparatory work. We screw wooden strips onto the walls into which the fabric will then be stapled. We also clean up and painted the window pipes and radiators in our parents' room, and the same thing in the hallway and the bathroom. We also painted the ceiling in the bathroom, hallway and the kitchen. Also, in order to stretch the suspended ceiling, it was necessary to completely disassemble the chandelier. And when the wallpaper finally arrived, we finished the last wall and secured the strips under the suspended ceiling. Also, when we took measurements of the height, it turned out that it was necessary to completely break down and remove the area under the chandelier, which I didn't really want to do but was necessary. And finally, the time has come for the most important thing that we have been waiting for a long time. The process of stretching the ceiling has begun. We did this for the first time. When we picked up the fabric, it also came with video instructions on how to do it correctly. Before we started doing anything, we carefully reviewed the video instructions, then gathered our strings and got to work. First, it was necessary to fasten one side of the fabric to one wall, then straight and fasten the parallel side as much as possible. Then return to the first wall and stretch and refasten the fabric as much as possible. Then, when the first and second sides are stretched to the maximum and completely secured, you can move on and stretch the fabric on the third wall and then on the fourth, and the fabric turns out to be stretched to the maximum. And when you knock on it, it sounds like you are knocking on a drum. A little bit of mess around, but a good result of hard work done. The next day, we don't waste any time and continue our hard work. We really want to hurry up and finish everything, especially we were very happy that we managed to stretch the ceiling and it turned out pretty good. I mean, not that I'm bragging, but I repeat, we did it for the first time. The advantage of this stretch ceiling is that it can be painted in any color you want, a special water emulsion paint that is odorless, and then if you get tired of the color, you can repaint in another. Also, when painting remove seams, the ceiling will look as a whole and that would need to see the seams a very good look. During the first day, we applied several layers of paint and let it dry well, until the next day. The result was already not bad. The next day, we continued our work, and first, before applying the next layer, we had to remove the folds that formed and became visible during painting. All very easily removed with an iron. And then my brother continued with the next layer of paint. I did a complete cleaning of the chandelier. Every part was disassembled. I also completely replaced the old wires because the chandelier stopped working just in time when we started doing the selling. Then, when we were completely finished painting, there were about 3 layers of paint total. Then I cut off the extra pieces of fabric and the first cracks started to appear. The fabric that we initially did not cut off so that it would not dirty the wallpaper when we painted, but the paint still seeped through the fabric and left stains on the wallpaper. We didn't have time to get upset, so we came up with the idea of trying to gently wipe the wallpaper with water and brush, but this method didn't work very well, and then we decided to buy strips of decorative trim and glue it on top of the wallpaper, and this worked very well and completely changed the look in the hall. I also partially fixed the chandelier that would light the hall, and when I was completely finished with gluing the decorative strips, I began the full assembly of the chandelier, which also took not a little time. Then a little clean up, and we finally got the hall cleaned up. But it's not over yet. We also decided not to buy new doors yet, and just paint the old ones. Without hesitation, we came up with the idea of how to greatly improve the appearance of the ceiling, especially at night. Well, this idea already came to us when choosing the color. We were going to paint the ceiling. We ordered a set of phosphorus stars with a planetary system via the internet, and when it all arrived we immediately got to work. Using a special application on my phone, I drew and placed constellations on the ceiling, as well as planets. We also had to spend almost a whole day on this activity, but the result was worth it. It's a shame that the camera cannot convey how it all shines at night, but believe me, it looks wonderful.